Number 2, how to reconcile energy and climate objectives. The moderator will be Professor A.Nihat Berker, the president of the Sabancı University. And the panelists will be Mr. Ahmet Erdem, country chairman of Shell Turkey, and Canan Özsoy, president and CEO of GE Turkey, and Mr. Mehmet Göçmen, president of the Sabancı Holding Energy Group. Please welcome on the stage. Thank you very much.
Merhaba arkadaşlar. Welcome back, friends. We are going to continue this to keep the continuity with the morning session, although we can all manage in Turkish also, maybe other languages also, but we'll keep it to English. We had a very exciting, times are always exciting when you're talking energy, and when you're talking energy in Istanbul, when you're talking energy in IICEC. But today was also exciting, exceptionally exciting, with our predictions and Fatih Birol's and other speakers. So we will continue on that. And I have a very professional, knowledgeable set of panelists, as was already told by Dawn. Ahmet Erdem, country chairman, Shell Turkey. Canan Özsoy, president and CEO, GE Turkey. And Mehmet Göçmen, president, Sabancı Holding Energy Group. So I will start, I have some questions here. I will have 1 or 2 rounds of questions, and then we will take questions from the audience. So, Ahmet Bey, I'm starting with you. So we talked, of course, when you say energy, you cannot not think about climate, the effects on climate, global warming. So let's start off immediately. Can you tell us some details of the low carbon energy investments of Shell in Turkey or in the world?
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks to the whole audience, dear distinguished guests, participants. It's great to be here, and I highly appreciate your patience and bearing with us to this last panel of the day. I also want to thank Sabancı University for carrying on with this yearly forum, which brings all of us together to look at the world's energy issues so closely. So maybe a few words before we get into what Shell does, if I may do so. I mean, the world is changing, the energy world is changing, definitely to meet a greater demand and to respond to the environmental stresses, environmental challenges that it brings with us. The big challenge for all of us, for the society, is to provide much more energy with much less carbon dioxide. We all agree that Paris Agreement is a very important milestone where 190 plus countries have agreed to progress towards a lower carbon energy system. And now we are talking about implementation. Transition to a low carbon future is possible. This is how we see it from Shell perspective. However, of course, strong policy choices and actions and continued investment in oil and gas, as well as rapid growth in lower carbon fuels, is definitely required. To achieve a low carbon society, we believe that there are 3 main areas to be addressed. One of them is, of course, to become more energy efficient. And that means, of course, adopting fundamentally different approaches than we have been doing until now in terms of city planning, infrastructure, modes of transport, and of course, establishing better efficiency standards. We have listened to a couple of very interesting presentations in the morning regarding that. There is also a need for a lot more renewable energy in the system, working with combination with gas to provide reliable electricity. This involves, of course, significantly increasing the use of electricity because currently electricity is a relatively smaller part of the energy mix. The world also needs to reduce the carbon intensity of the fossil fuel share in the energy system. Of course, it is important from an implementation perspective that this is clearly not possible to replace the energy system in a short time frame. Today, the estimated value of energy-related infrastructure which uses fossil fuels is around 55 trillion US dollars. That is quite a significant number. That's like 70% of the global GDP. And of course, oil powers more than 90% of transport. If you look at, when we say transport, this is a variety of vehicles that has a lifetime of starting from 10, 15, going up to 40 years when we talk about vessels and larger modes of transport. And of course, also many of the services that we take for granted are based on coal and oil and gas. Therefore, there are very important choices to be made by suppliers and consumers in the energy transition. It will definitely take new technologies and significant investments over the decades to come to change this energy mix. For example, we talked about, again, reducing the emissions today. Remember, it looked like around 32 gigatons per annum of CO2 emissions. In order to reduce, and we saw that the target in the scenario around 19 by 2040, in order to reduce 1 gigaton of CO2 emissions, you have to take 260 plus coal-fired power plants out of the system. And that needs replacement, of course. And if we talk about wind turbines, we are talking around 275,000 wind turbines, more or less, to cover that gap that would be coming from there. Or, again, for 1 gigaton, you would have to take 211 million vehicles off the roads. That is double the number of vehicles in passenger cars in the United States. So these are big numbers, and how we achieve that is, of course, is the main challenge. The last 30 years, if you take at other examples, how fast we have been until now, biofuels are on the agenda for 30 years, but we are only at 3% of the share in global transport fuels. Of course, there are exceptions. If you look into Brazil, penetration of biofuels in transport is 25%, but not many countries have the same climate, have the same land availability to do that. So from our perspective in that sense is, of course, what Shell should be doing or what Shell is doing. Let me try to summarize that also. We are trying to take a part in this whole thing as a catalyst for change. Our commitment to innovation and R&D and our thought leadership, we believe, can help in an important commercial contribution to the energy transition. We are investing further into natural gas, especially LNG, and we are one of the world's leading energy suppliers. The reason why we are investing into LNG is obviously after liquefying, transporting, and turning it back into gas, LNG still emits around half of the CO2 compared to coal when burned to generate power, electricity. LNG is a very good alternative to diesel in transport, including shipping, railroads, etc., besides the heavy goods road transport, and also natural gas backs up intermittency of renewables in the energy, in the power generation. Again, together with that, we are investing into new fuels for mobility, like biofuels and hydrogen. Our biofuels investments include Ryzen, which the one that I mentioned in Brazil, that produces ethanol from sugarcane. In hydrogen, we are investing into a network in Germany, which is going to have 390 hydrogen stations to refuel hydrogen-powered vehicles. We fund new technologies through Shell's recently established New Energies business. Shell's capital employed in new energies is around $1.7 billion, and we are currently investing around $200 million into the new energy technologies. We intend to continue investing into lower carbon technology, carbon capture and storage, which is big for Shell, biofuels, wind, and also solar energy. At the same time, we are also reducing our emissions. Over the last decade, more or less since 2003, our emissions have dropped by 35%. And I believe it is, of course, when you look at the total picture, the share of the private companies in the, let's say, the emissions under the ground is very little. When you look at 15 companies which are providing 50% of Shell's oil, the world's oil and gas, the share of the private companies in that is around 5% only. Having said that, of course, we feel the responsibility, as I said, through our thought leadership and contribution into the technology. We believe we will be helping and supporting the transition.
I have a small follow-up question. Forgive my ignorance. Sure. Are there, for LNG, the crucial thing is terminals to convert gas into liquid natural gas and then to back convert it. So are there LNG terminals in Turkey that would convert LNG into gas?
Yes.
How many, where, how extensive?
Currently, one is in Alia. The plans and in fact the activity to expand the one in Marmara is ongoing. There are also plans, and BOTAŞ is also looking at, as far as we read from the press, into FSRUs, which are floating storage and regasification units, which are a quicker way of expanding your LNG intake capacity. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, then I continue down the line with Canan Hanım, Canan Özsoy, President and CEO, GE Turkey. So I have kind of a specific and more general question. The specific one, where the new power plant, Fatih paper said that the new power plants in the world in the last year, 90% of them were renewable based. That was in the world. In Turkey, the new power plants that were started in the last year, are there 90% renewable? That's a specific question. Do we have a percentage of that? And most generally, of course, so what are the latest advancements in fossil fuel-based assets, especially, again, coal and gas power plants?
Thank you very much. Like Ahmet Bey, I would also like to thank IICEC for the kind invitation to speak in this afternoon's panel, and also a heartfelt, warm welcome to all our distinguished guests, participants, members. So your particular question, yes, in the past year, in 2015, most of the new generated energy we have added to our power grid has been through renewables, some in geothermal and mainly in onshore wind. I do not know of the exact percentage. It is not as high as 90%, but it is significant. I don't think we have calculated that, and this is a good question to take back to my company and to reassess our figures. But one specific figure I can give you in answer to your question, until this year, until 2015, we have added almost 400 to 500 megawatts each year of onshore wind capability to our generation. Last year was a peak. We added 1 gigawatt in 1 year, 912 megawatts to be exact. So the same trend is replicated in Turkey. Coming back to your more general question, Turkey is a very, very interesting country. We have a lot of issues, but despite everything that is going on internally, externally, in the global markets, in financial sectors, in commodity prices, especially in oil and gas prices, Turkey continues to grow substantially. It was an above 4% GDP growth in 2015. This remarkable growth comes from our dynamic population, comes from continued increase in urbanization, it comes from industrial growth. These all require electrification. These all require energy. Yes, we have a 71 gigawatt generation capacity, but our aspiration in the next 8 years is to take this from 70 gigawatts today to 120, which will be in par with our energy demand. So can Turkey deliver this only through renewable resources, or 90% from renewable resources? Doubtfully. One would wish, but neither our need nor our grid is organized in a way to take all of this generation in the form of renewables. So we will continue to depend on fossil fuel generated energy for the foreseeable future, at least in the next 10 years until our nuclear investments kick in. So is there a way to make these fossil fuel burning assets more environmentally friendly? Is this fact going to be a barrier between us realizing our COP21 acknowledgement? Not necessarily. Recent developments in combustion and high technology material science has allowed companies like us to develop better than ever gas and steam turbines to support power plants. Combined cycle gas turbines and ultra supercritical coal power plant technologies are currently driving the trend of clean fossil fuels in the market. By adding high-tech generation assets to the portfolio, it is possible to satisfy both economical and environmental constraints. Currently, all our new gas and coal investments are shifting to these new technologies supplied by us and other technology companies, but also there is a way of going back into your current assets and upgrading them, improving their efficiency and also decreasing their impact on generation. For example, one of our leading energy clients, Enka, has been supplying 13% of Turkey's electricity since 2002 with combined cycle gas-fired power plants. They placed their first order for GE's 9F advanced gas pathway technology for 10 of its existing gas turbines at Gebze, Adapazarı, and Izmir power plants. Enka is expected to deliver a total of up to 150 additional megawatts of power from the same assets with the help of this new technology upgrade, and they also expect to lower their emissions footprint with the installation of advanced gas path. Upon completion of its program, including the dry low nitrous oxide technology, Enka plants will reach over 57% combined efficiency. Furthermore, this is just one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is for coal-fired power plants. We have recently acquired a company called Noiko. Noiko has digital control technologies. With the digital controls that are put on the boilers, GE software uses neural networks technology to process data generated at the boiler. It controls the fuel-air ratio and soot blowers to reduce nitrous oxides and to control particulates and carbon dioxide emissions. So 1% improvement in the heat rate in the coal-fired power plant, 20% reduction in nitrous oxide emissions, and allows consistency in operation, which brings further efficiency to the asset and the investment. Not only in generation phase, but also after generation, it is possible to provide state-of-the-art environmental control systems for power plants to reduce the environmental impact. For Turkey, focusing on high-tech generation assets in upcoming coal projects, which we know, like Mrs. Sabancı acknowledged, like Fatih Birol acknowledged, we will have to make use of our local lignite. However uncomfortable that may feel, we need it from an economy point of view, but it is possible using these technologies to increase the efficiency and to decrease, neutralize the environmental impact. So Turkey should consider, in my opinion, to introduce standards, technology standards for existing and new power plants that will have to be built using natural gas or coal.
Again, if you permit me a small follow-up question. From the course that I teach, actually, I have learned that in renewables, if you're doing too well, one problem is sometimes you have excess power generation and you don't know how to store it. Have we, with all the excess capacity that you're putting, have we approached a limit like that at times in places in Turkey where we have excess power generation, and what is done about it?
Yes, we have. Nothing is done about it. That's the short answer. Let me try to explain. We have gas storage technology for renewables today. But the technology itself allows us to store only 5% of the extra capacity and at a very high price. The technology is in invention mode. So technological step changes should happen before we can use it in professional power plants. There is one very interesting example I will tell you that will give hope. GE will provide Coachella Energy Storage Partners. This is a company stated in California with a 30 megawatt battery energy. Until today, the batteries we have been able to do were 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts, but this is the first time we are delivering a 30 megawatt battery. As part of the Coachella Energy Storage Systems supply contract, they will represent GE's largest energy storage project to date. The plant will be located in California's Imperial Valley, approximately 100 miles east of San Diego. This is an interesting example because the facility will aid grid flexibility and increase reliability of the network by providing solar ramping, frequency regulation, power balancing, and black start capability for an adjacent gas turbine. So this is coming. We are investing heavily into making this technology work in a commercial environment rather than an experimental environment. And I'm very excited because solar and wind will reach its maturity with the use of data storage technologies.
Thank you. Well, I cannot hold myself. Usually it's not done. A second follow-up question then. I've smelled blood here. No. We're not being recorded, are we? With respect to this exciting and important research, you've just talked that there's new technologies to store at a high price, and that has to be improved. Coming from academia, from a university, are these researches done at Turkish universities? Can these researches be done at Turkish universities? Can you motivate us in various ways to do these researches at Turkish universities?
Naturally. GE has 5 global research centers around the world. And in these research centers, we use probably the funds of up to $6 billion every year on new technologies. Because of the nature of our work, mostly it goes to aviation technologies and energy technologies. We naturally collaborate a lot with academia. And in Turkey, we do so. We do some research with your university and with 2 others. But there is definitely room for improvement in this academic collaboration.
It's okay to mention the others too. Who are they? Who are the 2 other universities?
Bosphorus University and Koç University.
We love our rivals.
Okay.
You never know who's listening. Okay, Mehmet Bey. Mehmet Göçmen, President, Sabancı Holding Energy Group. So I have, again, a specific question and a general question. The general question is, how do you reconcile energy and climate objectives of Turkey? But then specifically in that, the building sector is very active, in Turkey, and Turkish builders are active globally. And again, my recent knowledge says that actually new buildings are a contributor to carbon dioxide emissions. So is there, in the more specific case, the fact that our building sector is so active, does that have a considerable negative contribution to climate change? And in general, what is the situation in Turkey? What's the reconciliation?
Thank you very much, Nihat Bey, and good afternoon. And I was not expecting such a number of audience in the afternoon, by the way. And I have to admit that I was wrong in guessing less than 50 people in the room in this afternoon. And not in parallel, in conflict with the speaker side, the gender diversity is also encouraging in the room. because since this morning we have with Canan only 2 women speakers, Güler Sabancı and herself. And so I hope that in the future, while organizing this kind of event, the organizer should take this into consideration. After that small introduction, I would like to give some specific points about our Turkish economy from an energy perspective. First of all, if you look at Turkey from an investor point of view, it is extremely encouraging to see per capita energy consumption in Turkey is about the half of OECD average. So by taking this into consideration, there is a huge growth opportunity in this country, giving the rate of urbanization plus the young generation that we have. The young generation means the median age of Turkey is less than 30 years. And the level in European Union for the same statistics is more than 40 years. So from a statistic point of view, the people on the street are more than 10 years younger in Turkey than any other European country. And this is one fact. We have a huge growth potential. But the second thing is that if you look at Turkish GDP, in terms of energy intensity, the energy intensity in Turkish GDP is more than 30% higher than OECD level. It means that we are using more energy to create the same dollar GDP. The third one, if you look at fossil resources in our energy environment, it is about 12% higher than OECD average. So if you put those 3 figures together, Turkey has to invest for energy efficiency, and plus Turkey has to change certain strategic decisions that we had taken years ago. Up until very recently, we were supporting our new investments through attractive energy tariffs. And we are still having a kind of cross subsidies between industrial tariff and residential. So this is one fact that I will come to this point later on while answering your specific question, because it is directly related to this. And the other part of the story is Turkey has to import primary energy. Our dependence to other countries to importation is about 75%. And we have a big problem in our economy, which is called this current account deficit, which is a big limitation in our growth story as economy. And finally, very recently, we started to discuss this middle income trap. Turkish per capita income cannot exceed $10,000 per capita. And the intensity of energy intensive industry in our economy is one of the main factors of being in mid-income trap. So if you put all those good numbers and the facts about Turkey together, one can easily end up with saying, okay, Turkey has to invest for energy efficiency or better energy solutions, not only for climate change purpose, but we need to invest in this in order to go out from this mid-income trap and to solve partially our current account deficit problem at the same time. But the question is why and how? And why is evident, but how is the big question mark. So we need to have a strategic roadmap. This cannot be done from today to tomorrow. But coming back to your specific question, for example, my background is not energy, as you all know. And most of my career, more than 50% of it, I used to be in cement industry. And I have some friends, other friends in the room from cement industry, but I believe that they will not tell this story to the other cement players in the country. But cement, for example, is representing about 5% of electricity consumption of the country. And Turkey's cement industry is the second largest exporter worldwide. Let me give you one small figure. China is producing 2.5 billion tons of cement, 2.5 billion. Turkey is producing 75 million. China is exporting 8 million tons of cement. Turkey is exporting maybe 15 to 20 million tons of cement every year. So the country exporting more cement than Turkey is Iran. But they have their energy, primary energy resources. And you can take iron and steel as an example, some chemicals as an example, and Turkey has to change these strategic choices. This is one thing. And the other thing, Turkey has to change the cross-subsidies, because under cross-subsidies, nobody would invest for energy efficiency. And as said this morning by Mr. Tyson, today's very low energy prices is giving us a unique opportunity to get rid of all the cross-subsidies in the country. Going forward, liberalization is another major point in Turkey, because Turkey needs to grow anyway, with efficiency, without efficiency, but we need to improve the life quality of our population. And as Mr. President Tayyip Erdogan said, we need to invest maybe around $100 billion in energy industry in the future, as well in the coming 10 years. We invested 70 billion in the last 10 years, by the way. And so how we can attract investors for such an environment? And liberalization is the key word for this, because today's power market environment is not giving any transparency to the investors. We have still very heavy state involvement in power generation, and we have still regulated tariffs for the final users, one tariff for industry, for commercial, for residential purposes. We have still a very high eligibility limit to become a free customer. So if you put all those things together, there is no motivating environment for the investors to further invest in Turkey. But we need to invest to our grid for efficiency purpose and for technological reasons in order to improve our efficiencies and to better use of our solars. The audience is quite young, but I can tell very easily in front of Ahmet Bey maybe that during my university years at Middle East Technical University, we have a big computer center, and we had to punch the cards and to give to this computer, to this black box, and to wait more than 20 days to get an answer. And the answer was most probably would be syntax error at line such and such. So you wasted more than 20 days for this purpose. And you have to have strong muscles to carry all those punch cards, and very strong sentimentally and emotionally to wait patiently for 20 days for a syntax error. And today, from that point, the IT sector went into a cloud, from DAM terminal to intelligent terminals, then to networks and others, and today we are talking about clouds and other things. And still we are transmitting electrons on the wires. And we have big, huge power plants like big, huge computer centers in the past. And we are still physically carrying energy from one place to another. I'm sorry, but I'm not a physician, Nihat Bey, but I might become one of your students maybe in the near future. And at the same, so there is going to be a lot of change in this industry. So how we are going to spend the money, how we are going to allocate our capital is the macro model that we need to think about.
Thank you very much. I must say I still keep the punch cards from my PhD thesis just in case. I also should say that, and not here, but what's that technical school in Boston? MIT. At MIT, this joke has been. At MIT and other places, they are working, I'm sure you know, about wireless energy transmission, basically, and I think that's coming. In fact, one of my students is from the past, who's a professor now, is working on such things.
In Japan last year, they have successfully transferred electricity in a lab 70 centimeters wirelessly.
Yes.
So if you can do it once, it's only a matter of the step change.
It's good to be, physics is on your side, so you're going to be okay.
Thank you.
So this is product placement, I suppose, we're saying this. But, okay, so we continue with our rounds. So I come to Ahmet Bey. Some conferences are infamous. I'm not going to mention which, but some cities come to mind for infamous conferences. Some conferences are famous, good famous, and will stay that way. So the jury is still out, I think, on Paris. And we've heard a lot about Paris. The title of our conference is on Paris. So from the point of view of the sector, from Shell, what is your assessment of the Paris Accords and its probability of success now?
Yes, I mean, we definitely welcome the efforts made by the governments to cooperatively reach this landmark global climate agreement. This is really great, and it supports the long-term climate goals that balance the environmental pressures with, of course, providing, as I said, providing more energy to keep the life standards and development of the world going forward. Shell is particularly pleased about the Article 6, which introduces the necessary foundations to support the development of a global carbon emissions market. We believe this is key. The transition to low carbon lives and economies are best underpinned by the meaningful government-led carbon pricing. Without that, we don't really see controlling the carbon emissions possible. Of course, reference to the stretch targets reinforces the need for carbon capture and storage technology. This is the only technology that will prevent the CO2 from industrial emissions, and Shell has been at the leading forefront in the innovation side of the carbon capture and storage technology. We will continue to work with individual countries to help the countries to deliver their commitments as much as we can through our technology, through our innovation. And we see, as I said previously, also the natural gas, the government-led carbon pricing mechanism, CCS, and the use of lower carbon fuels as our contribution to reacting to this future of the world. Yeah.
So do you think this 2% is going to be met?
We believe it is achievable, but yes, it will require, first of all, it requires an unprecedented coordination, leadership, and also commitment. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, and it requires this from all parts of the society. It's not the companies, it's not the governments, but the whole society has to stand behind that.
Well, this is a realization, and hope will lead you there. Yeah. If I move on then, so we see, we were talking about energy, but it's all industry sectors are related in their work to each other. Ingrained inside of the energy sector is, of course, as mentioned with computer cards, is the software industry. So how does the software industry, programming, machine-based optimization affect the energy sector Could you tell us a little bit about that? And how much work is done on that? How much progress is done? How much is to be done?
It's definitely the new trend. It is here, and that is how we link the Paris Conference of the Partners with technology. Yes, I agree with Ahmet Bey. It is very much possible to reach, with today's technologies, the 2 degrees centigrade target, but a lot of technology has to be used. It's been invented, it's been commercialized, it's out there, but we should somehow align government incentives, investor returns to integration of these technologies so that they will come to life and deliver the desired impact. Software technologies and industrial internet are allowing everyone to deep dive into specifics of their own industries. With the help of the sensors, I gave the example of the boilers, for example, many more, the increased data collection possibilities, we are more equipped to crack the code of efficiency more than ever. And it's been mentioned also in Fatih Birol's speech that most of the goals are going to be reached through increased efficiency. We know much more about our equipment, machinery, and thanks to recent developments in software, it is possible to unleash the power of 1%. If the subject is energy generation, even a 1% improvement might save billions of dollars for countries as well as millions of tons of emissions. In order to accomplish such improvements, it is crucial to digitize the industry. Interconnected machines are also learning machines. Every day, our assets throughout the world are generating enormous amount of data, and the newly generated data is processed by using advanced softwares to understand what's going on inside the machine. By controlling and managing every little detail in the equipment, we are able to extract more power from the same asset by using less amount of fuel. That directly contributes to the goals. Decreased downtime and predictive maintenance also help power producers to take their costs under control and provide better customer service throughout the value chain. For example, an example from the industry, AkzoNobel uses GE software powered by the industrial internet to transform its operations, increasing capacity by 20%. We could do the same for the cement industry, invite me, and improving traceability to better serve its customers. They are a Dutch multinational active in the fields of decorative paints, performance coatings, and specialty chemicals. Transportation is another major source of energy consumption, and digital advancements in industry is enabling both commercial and personal transportation to increase efficiency and availability. The Paris Agreement on Climate Change and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals will support integration of low-carbon transport policy. We really need that. Ahmet Bey mentioned passenger and consumer transportation. We also do a lot of work on finding the optimum route for aircrafts and constantly checking more than 200,000 sensors on locomotives and connecting all transportation assets to each other for improved collaboration. GE solution for locomotives, which is called the Trip Optimizer, has logged more than 100 million miles in auto-control mode, saving the customers more than 200 million liters of fuel, and this represents between 3 to 17% of fuel savings depending on the customer and which asset they are using. And we do the same with flight efficiency services. It is possible to provide up to 2% annual fuel savings for the airline industry. They all, in a small but significant and meaningful way, contribute to reaching the 2 degrees centigrade goal.
Thank you. My next question is going to be a follow-up to Mehmet Bey. distorted. You just said that software is used to optimize aircraft, to optimize machines, machine performance. But we all know, and of course I should know being an academician, in every operation, what is the most important factor? It is the human factor. And with that comes, of course, optimizing the performance of the human factor, and that leads us to business models. That is not completing the machines, and the machines can help that as well. So how do different business models coming and going, and in the future, Mehmet Bey, going to affect the energy future of Turkey, of the world?
A very good question for a person representing about $11 billion of investment to the existing business model. What's going to be the future? First of all, we have to define Turkey as one of the top 20 countries If I will put aside all the efficiency measures that we can easily take at home or at industries, starting from generation point up until the final user point, without taking into consideration the final user efficiency, our total loss in between is around 17–18%. So this is one fact. And there is a lot technologically or through other means that we can do. Our transmission lines are okay. We are more, plus minus in line with the global standards. But for distribution part that has been very recently privatized, there is big room of improvement. Then we have certain problems at the generation side as well, because we have still some power plants, most of them are fossil burning power plants with a comparatively very low level of efficiencies. So that's why we reach more than 20% up until the end user point. So at end user, there are tremendous opportunities, from strategic options to certain measures, some smart measures at home, at distribution points, grids, and everything. But the major change will be through digitalization, is the smaller grids, and the system will start from the final point, not from the big plants, from the consumption point, and we are going to build microgrids and to go to the national level from that point on. But we need to have a transparent, as Mr. Tyson again was telling this morning, people should demand for this. And today, if you ask a person on the street, and even some very important people from private or state sectors, nobody understands or is aware that we have a privatization process in energy. Everybody is considering the whole utility sector as being still under state control. So they don't know how to demand, how to ask for new things. But creating awareness is the first point. But it can only solve maybe 35% of the whole story, of the whole problem. Then after awareness building, we have to go a long way to reach positive actions. But Turkey may, normally, we are starting a bit late, like in football games, and most of our scores are coming after 19 minutes, at the last moment. So that's why we are saying that biz bitti demeden bitmez is the motto or slogan of Turkish national team at European Cup. So maybe it will take some period, maybe months, maybe years to start with this, but I'm sure that with the dynamism, as Canan said before, of our society, we can easily reach there. But this is my proposition. If Turkey would invest half of the money, instead of generation, to the consumption side, to the consumer, we will have much more sustainable utility system in the country.
Yes, in fact, if I may comment also, a word that you stole from what awareness is important. Awareness, then putting public pressure on the local and country government. I'm going to just say one or two anecdotal things. I think it's known that Europe is doing quite well in renewables and carbon dioxide emission reduction. The other day I was in France and I bought a train ticket from Paris to Lille, a short distance, and on my ticket was written how much carbon dioxide emission there was going to be because I bought this ticket. Then I went to the train station and I looked and I saw people sitting having their cappuccinos, and at the same time they were pedaling. And by pedaling they were charging their telephones. So this is awareness. But now we all love our country, that's why we're here. But I'm going to give a counter example. So we go on the highway, this is getting colloquial, there's a little accident and two cars have nicked each other. In the middle of the highway of the Autobahn, they both stop, and I don't know what they're waiting for. And behind that, there's 10, 20 miles all the way from the Bosphorus to Tuzla. I don't know why I'm saying that. People waiting with their cars running. Think about the pollution, the fuel expense of just waiting there just because you're not practical enough to pull the cars to the side. And that is something, it cries for changing. And I think it's a considerable, if one should calculate how much energy is lost through traffic stop for people because people have blocked. But I have good hope. After all, we're a country who puts its onions outside on the windowsill, not to use the refrigerator. So that practicality should be more generalized. Having said that, now let's hear from our audience. I am going to take the questions one by one. It's getting late, so we'll see who's going to answer. So we're going to take a few questions from the audience. And I see my friend Nabil there raising his hand, but he's waiting for the microphone. Briefly introduce yourself, who you are, where you're coming from.
Thank you, Dr. Nihat. My name is Nabil Al-Khwaitir. I'm with Saudi Aramco from Saudi Arabia. And first of all, I want to thank you for a great panel. We had no trouble staying awake, especially with Dr. Nihat's wonderful humor. Just so I don't take too much time, I just want to say that Mehmet Bey actually answered a few of the questions I had regarding the lack of adoption of renewable energy in Turkey. And this is especially in the light of the fact that over the last year or so, there has been a revolution in solar energy cost reduction. For some of you may know that 1 year ago, a solar energy auction in Dubai led to, I think, a contract for 5.9 cents per kilowatt, or around 6 cents per kilowatt. And this year, February, it was another auction, brought it down to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, in Turkey, as far as I know, the unsubsidized, or just the lowest price you can get as a consumer, industry or residential, is about 10 cents per kilowatt, or thereabouts, maybe a little bit more. And with this huge gap, even if we assume 50% utilization of solar, you still have a great margin without having any subsidy. So I'm just curious, just to follow up. I mean, I understand regulation is a problem, but this is such an economic opportunity. Why aren't we moving faster here? It just seems too good to be true.
Can I answer? This is what you see from outside. First of all, your figures are correct, but let me put in this way. In power industry in Turkey, we have two kinds of customers. One is regulated customer. For them, the price are according to regulated market and price mechanism. And there are free customers, and there is a daily energy market. In daily energy market, the price of power in Turkey is less than $5 cents per kilowatt hour, not 10. And we have a feed-in tariff, special feed-in tariff for wind and hydro at 7.3, and only for solar we are paying 13.3 in order to promote solar energy. But for the regulated tariff, most of the energy are coming from the state companies, and as distributor or as retail companies of those customers, we have less than 3% of margin, regulated margin for our retail services. And distribution companies and transmission companies has their portion from the tariff, going forward from daily market to the final user. But the energy price in Turkey, in the market that we are living as private industry, is less than $5 cents. As of yesterday, it was 138 lira per megawatt hour, 13.8 kurush, which is much less than $5 cents per kilowatt hour.
More, I see a hand raised there. Could we have the microphone, please? Could you, again, please tell who you are, where you're coming from, and then question.
From Sanko Energy. As the topic of today's event is Paris COP21, what implications for energy industry, I'd like to know specifically the impacts and effects of this Paris COP21 on the business, thermal business of Turkey, especially, I mean, after the nationally determined contribution of Turkey to the business as usual by 21% by 2030. I mean, is there going to be any kind of carbon allocation, or is there going to be a kind of carbon tax as it has been in all over the world? I mean, I wonder if somebody knows the answer to that question. I wonder, I mean, I'd like to ask this question to you, I mean, to the speakers. Thank you.
My perspective is that the answer to that question, as you have rightfully put, is depending on what actions will be taken for the implementation, if when taken. So it's really, I think at this stage, very difficult to see the impact on Turkish economy or the business unless a specific decisions and a roadmap is drawn.
It's not an answer, but maybe some comments on it. It's difficult to talk about it in front of Mr. Rende, but as being an industrial sector person in this country and used to be personally the chairman of the Sustainability Association of Turkey for many years, I was not aware of this 21% commitment of Turkey before that decision had been taken in Paris. So there was no a study or a kind of public hearing, and there should be certain studies behind that, but as being a private sector player, most of us, we were not aware about that commitment. So that's why we don't know as yet what will be the impact of this to our industrial life. There are a lot of studies and project groups working within TÜSİAD and within other groups as well to find a way, a roadmap for Turkey going forward. But as of today, as far as I know, there is no concrete, solid roadmap and plan for this country. Maybe Mr.
Ambassador Rende would like to add a few things.
Thank you very much, Nihat Bey. I'm grateful for your contributions, the panelists, and your very pertinent remarks. First of all, yes, I had the honor to be part of this from Copenhagen on the process, and in fact, we have been quite consistent in our approach to climate change negotiations. We insisted that there should be a common but differentiated responsibilities. We have always tried to get a fair agreement and equitable agreement. Equitable and fair, all inclusive. All countries should make commitments, and I think we achieved that in Paris. We should really congratulate the French authorities. It was a diplomatic success for the leadership of France, for President Hollande and for Laurent Fabius and for Ségolène Royal. I was in Paris and I participated in some of their activities, and they were really committed, and there was this political will at highest level that we should achieve something in Paris, and they did. But what we achieved was out of a political will, through leaders, through our leaders, and so many countries have signed on the 22nd of April, I was told, yes. But still, this agreement has been signed but not implemented, so it will take time until all countries have ratified this agreement. So they have to ratify it and then to implement it. It will take time. It's easier said than done, and political commitments must be supported by the public. And Nihat Bey, you raised the issue of awareness, the importance of awareness. It's so important. What was missing in Paris was the lack of maybe an article, a clause about working to improve public awareness. The world public should be behind this agreement, and we should encourage them to make use of the energy resources in a most efficient manner. We should encourage them to use transportation facilities in a most efficient manner, and to support this agreement, which is, in fact, it's for the common good of the world. So it will take some time. I'm not that optimistic. I can't be so optimistic at this point in time about reaching the 2 degrees centigrade goal. we need more commitments. We need, the French people, you rightly said, Professor, the French people are quite good at committing themselves. They don't use plastic bags in France. If you go to a shopping mall, they carry their own bags, you see, and it will take maybe 20 more years for Turkey, for the Turks, to stop using plastic bags. So it is a kind of awareness. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we have to empty all those drawers full at home of plastic bags, right? Or at least not collect them there, or not want them. So thank you, Ambassador Rende. And we continue with the questions. I hear Vice President Rukan over there. You introduce yourself.
Okay. Sondan Durukanoğlu Faiz, another physics professor from Sabancı University. When I look at an energy equation, what I see is demand on one side and production on the other side. And I'm afraid when energy investments are planned, people are considering today's trends in the consumption, ignoring the increasing efficiency. My question is, what is the real risk of having excess energy productions for the years to come?
I think the beautiful question, thank you very much, even if you are a physics professor, okay? The answer to your question was probably in the first speech of Mehmet Bey. When you look at developed economies' energy consumption, Turkey is still way below the averages. So as Turkey continues to industrialize, manufacture more, be less import dependent, and have more jobs for young people with value-added technologies, the demand for electricity and power should increase. Number two, the way we consume electricity today is way less mature than it should be. There will be a balancing factor between our increasing demographics, hopefully increasing industrialization and manufacturing, and decrease in demand due to efficiencies introduced should be calculated. As is the case in how are we going to meet our 21% reduction commitment, this is yet another area where our government, our regulators, our rule makers are enthusiastically positive, but we have a lack of policies that the industry side, the private sector, and the consumers can implement. So there needs to be discussions. I belong together under Mr. Ahmet Erdem's presidency to Foreign Investors Association, IICEC. I also work on several committees of other such NGOs. I think we should write more white papers, deeper dive into numbers with the help of academia, and present the government maybe some ready to swallow, ready to implement data-based solutions. So I value your question very much. Probably we don't need 120 gigawatts, but we definitely need more than the 70 we have today. We'll have to find the balance.
Let me add one small thing to that. A good study for the university as well. If one day I will follow the advice of Nihat Bey and to continue with my PhD, which was on the growth model of Turkey, you need to add a carbon component to this growth model. Whether the new carbon economy will be in our favor or not, and how can we make it in our favor? Because with the old economy, we reached up to $10,000 per capita level. Now there is a new era in front of us. What kind of opportunities or risks are waiting for us going forward? How we can make use of all those new events to our advantage in order to grow further. This is going to be first an academic study, and then turn this study into a strategy for this young country.
I take that as an application to our university, and I will follow up with that.
If I may add to Mehmet Bey's application, there are researches which, of course, can be extended, and I think it would be very good to look at Turkey from that perspective. That when you look at the energy consumption per capita of developed countries, you see a very similar trend. It goes up per capita, then after some point it starts coming down, then it settles, and that is, I mean, I think a summary of what you have said previously, because you go through different phases of development. In the phase of development where you are investing big time into infrastructure or going into industries like cement, with no offense, of course, it's a part of our business in industry, cement, steel, etc. This is where you, of course, have this significant increase in the energy consumption. Then maybe I mean, the level of production of those industries reduced because you have your infrastructure in place, etc. That is one. And of course, your exports start becoming more innovation and technology based. So more dollars per kilos and less energy per dollars. So I think we may look at that and see how we can kind of write the papers and make the recommendations in that sense.
And as you move into the services sector, of course, from industry, that also happens. I will take two more questions, and then we'll have a nice weekend. Please, one question there, and then one more question.
In Connolly. I am a student at Sabancı University's Energy Technologies and Management Master's Program. I've just got a simple, straightforward question to all of you. What do you think of the recent improvements on the incentivizing local lignite in Turkey? Do you think that is necessary, and what do you think the price level should be around at? And do you think it will boost new investments and enhancement or rehabilitation of existing power plants? Thank you.
Because I was a part of those talks as well, so I can express myself. If you look to this incentivization from a pure carbon perspective, it is against carbon reduction. But all the energy as being a strategic sector for the country, there are different aspects in your strategic decision-making process. And one of the most important one, because we are still 75% import depending energy consumption country. So you cannot go out from this trap in one day. So energy supply security is still one of the major concerns of Turkey, because 75% of our primary energy are imported, and more than half of this, maybe 2/3 of it, is coming from two countries. Like Ukrainian ambassador mentioned this morning here during the morning panel, Turkey, 2/3 of our primary energy are coming from Russia and Iran. Two very good neighborhoods for Turkey. So if you take those things together, in order to minimize our energy supply security risk, Turkey has, regardless of carbon, has to incentivize local resources, but local resources including local water resources, solar, and wind as well. So this is a choice for Turkey. Whenever the industry will shift from a fossil and imported fossil dependent industry to a more renewable energy intensive industry, maybe in the coming 10 to 15 years, then we can change our strategic decision-making parameters during those years. But as of today, with today's geopolitical environment that we are in, that we can criticize maybe during days and nights, but given those facts, for the energy supply security, this is one of the strongest options for Turkish decision makers.
100% agree with everything that Mehmet Bey has said. It looks today, from a security point of view and from an economical viability point of view, that Turkey has to make use of its own local lignite resources in the near future. So this is the what. I wish that there was a more carbon-friendly, renewable way of managing our base load, but with today's technologies and in the current state we are in, that seems to be the only viable option. So it is not about the what that we should discuss, it is about the how. There are technologies today that make even our own low-calorie, not-so-good lignite more efficient and more environmentally friendly than we think is possible. So we need to balance short-term CAPEX needs with long-term OPEX, not only cost but environmental impact, and make sure that the governments put into place certain regulations and definitely industry standards that will prevent Turkey from becoming China #2.
I totally agree with that statement, and the main concern is how we can make it more environmental friendly. And we are going to emit carbon dioxide inevitably. So there is no way that with today's technology we can capture and store this carbon. But other environmental impact can be minimized and totally eliminated, which was not the case with most of the existing coal-firing power plants, unfortunately.
Yes, maybe one small addition to that is, of course, looking at what Mr. Birol was showing also in the morning, what's happening in the LNG markets in the world. That is still a viable option, and it's still, yes, it is imported, but you see how much it impacts when you have LNG options extended with a growing LNG market. But yes, from a domestic perspective, coal is there in Turkey, but still LNG and the flexibility it brings and potential reduction in the cost is something to be considered.
Supply diversity is important. And the two countries' dependency can be changed through LNG as well. Being local shouldn't be the major target anyway.
Thank you. My name is Robert Schuddeboom. I'm the Dutch Consul General. First of all, I do like to remind Mehmet Bey that we were kicked out by Turkey in the European Championship 3-0 in Konya. We have not forgotten that, but we will support Turkey during the championships, of course, coming. Regularly, we have to write the energy reports. I think all my notes of today will be sufficient for a good report back to The Hague, so thank you very much. I've got a question on biofuels. Until a few years ago, with the arrival of second and third generation of biofuels, it seemed really one of the energy supplies of the future, even with planes flying on olive oil or another vegetable that I do not exactly remember. But it seems to be very quiet in that field. So what is happening? And if it is still a promising source, I would also think it is something for Turkey with its huge agriculture potential. Thank you.
Biofuels, I heard the last part, which was Turkey related. Was there any question before that, Mr. Schuddeboom? No. Okay,
before that I made remarks about soccer, but they were very funny, but they were missed, so I'm sorry about that.
Are we going back to Paris for the games? Or Yes, Turkey, I mean, biofuels in Turkey are now following the EU standards with a bit of delay. We started late, the legislation in place. The key thing there is, of course, to keep the balance between, between the food and the fuel choice. That is why it is developing, and also there is a certain tax exemption now on a limited additivation of the biofuels. But it will grow. However, it's not going to bring too much impact into the Turkish, let's say, the fuel consumption, because that is also growing big time. Last year, the fuel consumption in the country grew by 15%. This year, year to date is around 8%. So this is a combination of different factors, of course. But the growth will continue, and additivation of biofuels will not have an impact on reduction of the emissions from the transport fuels, so to say. Yeah.
I thank our speakers, our panelists very much. I thank you for staying on here. And we look forward to seeing you in the coming months and also at our next IICEC conference. Thank you very much.